In today's tutorial, I will take you step by step through how I use this reference image to create a watercolour portrait using both watercolours and colour pencils at the end to add finishing touches. I will take you through how I've added different layers of watercolour and then finally added finishing touches at the end using colour pencils. I will also talk you through the equipment that I have used in this tutorial. So let's get into the tutorial now. So firstly, I'm going to talk to you about equipment. In this painting, I am using watercolour paper and I am using hot pressed paper. You can use any hot pressed paper, but for today's painting I'm using Arches because I like the way that it absorbs the water and because it's got really fine texture to it. All of the products that I'm using in today's demonstration are in the description below. On the left hand side you may see some particular watercolor brushes. They are by a brand called Silver and I like them because they hold a lot of water, which is perfect for watercolor painting. I also have on the left hand side a strip that shows all of the colors that I will be using in the painting for today's demonstration. So also to mention, on the right hand side you will see the paints that I'm using in today's demonstration. They are Winsor & Newton Cotman half pans and those are the paints that I am using today. So I'm starting by adding colour to the layer of water that I added with the large brush. I find this large brush really useful because it means that I can apply water to a large area very quickly. And most of the colours that I've used so far are watered down apart from this area of black here. Now it's really important when you're adding these layers that you identify the areas that you want to add colour to. And as I'm not adding colour to the face yet, I've left that area completely dry, and that means that the colour will not run onto the face. Picking out some dark areas in the hair just to make sure that there are some low lights or some dark areas before I add the details later. And I've picked out some areas around the neck. I'm now going to start adding some dark tones to the face. Now when you are adding watercolours, you need to bear in mind that the watercolours will dry a lot lighter, and when you're painting it's a bit scary initially because we have what's called an ugly stage where you look at your picture and you think, oh my goodness, what have I done? And it doesn't look quite right. But all of you, I can guarantee, will have this stage in your painting, and you might be worried about it, but trust me, it will come right in the end. You need about 2 or 3 layers before you start to discover that actually you've done the right thing. So before I got to this stage, I had dried my work with a hairdryer because I'm adding 2 or 3 layers. And then what I did was I sprayed the back of the paper with a spray mister, put it into a heavy book and then placed lots of heavy books on top of it because there was some slight warping. And I did this for 2 layers, and then I added my 3rd layer, waited for it to dry, and then I added my colour pencils. So I did add a little note on that on the clip just to let you know that that happened. I do that with most of my watercolour paintings, especially the larger ones. So even though you tape it down, sometimes you do have a little bit of warping. So it is worth mentioning that. And if you don't flatten them or try and straighten them out in between layers, you will find that you have pools of water, which you may want. I want that kind of fluid feeling in the background of this, which is fine. You will notice there's a few watercolor blooms in the back. That's fine. I want that kind of loose feeling in the picture, and some people wouldn't want that, but that's the kind of look I'm looking for today. But if you don't get rid of those kinks and warping in your paper, you will find those areas in your picture. So that's one tip for you. if you want to straighten your work. I'm now adding darker areas to the neck. This is the third layer on this one. And I'm adding even darker areas to the hair. You will see already on the hair how that brown has dried and it is much, much lighter. And obviously when I go in for the details of the pencil, that's when I will add the darker areas. I'm now going in with the sepia, which is the darker brown, to add those darker tones. And this is wet on dry because I want the details to be really fine. If this was wet on wet, it would be expanding, and I don't want that. I want these details to be quite refined and quite detailed. So I'm doing wet on dry. I've made sure that my paper is completely dry with the hairdryer before I'm adding these details, because if I didn't, they would expand. So I'm now starting to add details to the face with colour pencil. I am using a mixture of Faber-Castell, Caran d'Ache and Prismacolor, just purely because there's a different variety of qualities within each of those brands. So for example, for adding highlights, Prismacolor has a fantastic white colour pencil that's really opaque, whereas many of the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils have really good light fastness, so that's why I like to use them on portraits, and they're really good for detailing as well. So you will see now that I'm starting to go into a lot of the details with the pencils, picking out lots of colours, and what I try to do sometimes is try them out beforehand. I tested out, for example, the red, because there were quite a few reds that I could have chosen. And I used a couple of reds on this one because the girl's lips were quite a distinctive red colour. And I wanted to make sure that I got that balance right. And I'm even using pencil to shade in some of the areas around the face because the toning wasn't quite right with the watercolour, so I can add those details on afterwards. So I'm now going in to do some of the hair, adding a few more detail. I wanted this watercolour to be quite subtle. I didn't want there to be too much detail. I wanted it to be quite a loose watercolor study, so I'm just adding a few details in here with the watercolor. And sometimes it's nice to be quite loose with your drawings and your work. Not everything has to be detailed, and I wanted this one to be quite a laid back, loose study. If you enjoyed this clip, then make sure you check out more clips like this in the watercolour or portraits playlist. Don't forget to look in the description below for details of products used in today's clip, and if you have any ideas for content or questions, leave a comment below. Finally, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you would like to see more content like this in the future.